Boston, a city rich in history, culture, and community. But in the early 1960s, these cobblestone streets were haunted by a terror unlike anything the city had seen before. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to explore the case of the Boston Strangler in unprecedented detail. This isn't just a story of murder, it's a story of fear, psychology, and unanswered questions. Let's begin. Between 1962 and 1964, Boston was gripped by a wave of murders so horrifying that they would come to define an era. 13 women, ranging in age from 19 to 85, were strangled in their homes. The killer left behind a trail of terror, but few clues. To understand the case, we need to step into the shoes of the people who lived through it. In the early 1960s, Boston was a city of tight-knit neighborhoods. But the sense of security that came with knowing your neighbors would soon be shattered.
We didn't lock our doors back then. Nobody did. But after the first few murders, everyone was buying locks and double-checking them at night. It was terrifying. You'd hear whispers at the grocery store, on the bus. People were looking over their shoulders constantly.
The victims were often women who lived alone. They were found strangled with items from their own homes, scarves, stockings, or cords. The killer's signature was unmistakable, the bodies were often left in degrading poses. The first known victim was Anna Sleezers, a 55-year-old seamstress. On June 14, 1962, her son discovered her lifeless body in her apartment. The scene was gruesome, but it was just the beginning. The victims included Nina Nichols, a 68-year-old widow, Sophie Clark, a 20-year-old nursing student, and Mary Sullivan, just 19 years old. Each murder was unique in its own way, but the brutality tied them together. One of the most haunting aspects of these crimes is how the killer gained entry. Many victims were found with no signs of forced entry, suggesting they had let their attacker in willingly. Was he posing as a repairman? A salesman? Or someone they trusted? The Boston Police Department faced an overwhelming challenge. With no witnesses and few physical clues, they were forced to rely on psychological profiling, a relatively new technique at the time. The profile suggested the killer might be a white male in his 30s or 40s, someone charismatic enough to gain his victim's trust but with a deep-seated hatred for women.
The killer's method suggested a compulsive need for control. Strangulation is an intensely personal act, and the posing of the bodies was likely meant to humiliate the victims further.
Despite their efforts, the murders continued. Each new victim added pressure to a city already on the brink of hysteria. In 1964, police arrested Albert DeSalvo for a series of unrelated sexual assaults. While in custody, DeSalvo began to confess, claiming responsibility for the Boston Strangler murders. DeSalvo's confession was chilling in its detail. He described how he gained entry into the victims' homes, the methods he used to strangle them, and even the emotions he felt during the acts. But there was a problem: there was no physical evidence linking him to the crimes. DeSalvo was never tried for the Strangler murders. Instead, he was convicted of unrelated crimes and sentenced to life in prison. His confession has been both accepted and doubted in the years since. In 2013, decades after the murders, forensic science provided a breakthrough. DNA evidence linked DeSalvo to the murder of Mary Sullivan. But the other 12 murders remain unconfirmed. Could there have been more than one killer?
The DNA evidence was crucial, but it's important to remember that it only ties DeSalvo to one victim. The other cases have significant differences in method and profile, suggesting the possibility of multiple perpetrators. Some believe DeSalvo was a pathological liar, confessing to gain notoriety. Others argue that the inconsistencies in his confession could be attributed to the passage of time or mental health issues. We can't ignore the possibility that the Boston Strangler was a convenient scapegoat for a series of unrelated murders.
Albert DeSalvo's psychological profile has fascinated criminologists for decades. Diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, he was described as manipulative and deeply troubled. But does his profile align with that of a serial killer? Or was he simply a disturbed man who took credit for crimes he didn't commit?
The Boston Strangler's behavior suggests a methodical predator. While DeSalvo's profile fits in some ways, the lack of direct evidence makes it difficult to draw definitive conclusions.
The Boston Strangler case remains one of the most infamous in American history. It changed the way police approach serial murders and highlighted the importance of forensic science. More than 60 years later, the case still captivates the public imagination. Was Albert DeSalvo truly the Boston Strangler? Or does the real killer, or killers, remain unidentified? The Boston Strangler case is a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most vibrant communities. But it's also a testament to humanity's enduring quest for truth and justice. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.